Alright guys, I skipped ahead a few steps, mostly because I was really excited to do this. So this is another one of those optional parts to the build that I wanted to share with you when I got, basically alternatives for you. And I had a spare barrel in my spare parts bin from a previous build of this kit, earlier in the year, actually earlier last year. And I assembled it, straight out of the box. And it's a 2/2, 2-piece gun barrel. And I used a liberal amount of extra thin on both sides of the seam, so it gave me a lot of material. Also, another reason why I did that is the extra thin is going to fill in the seam for me, and should remove it. So what I did is I've been sanding on this using a sanding stick to remove the seam. Now, at the same time, you've got to be pretty careful that you don't remove too much material and you create a flat spot. So you got to, kind of be generous. So I'm using a pretty coarse sanding stick. So that is an option, and voila, seam is gone. The seam is gone. There's a seam here on the breech as well. So now we have this side. But I want to make you aware of another tool. Now, many of you guys are already aware of this. And what I've got here in my hand is a Pz.Kpfw. It's this bow-shaped piece of aluminum with a couple of pins on each side. And they come with a series of little tapes, if you will, that attach into the bow. And the neat thing about this is it conforms to the shape of what it is you want to sand so that you don't get a flat spot. So I'm going to use this to sand the back side of this, the opposite side of this barrel where the other seam is. It comes right off. And this barrel's pretty thin, so you got to be careful with it as you sand it. The Pz.Kpfw is an indispensable tool, by the way, for the aircraft builder, since so much of what you have to sand is going to be circular or round in nature. And there was the back part of this breech that I needed to sand. And voila! Seam is removed on both sides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change grits my Pz.Kpfw to a less aggressive or less coarse sanding tape. Because this texture is pretty rough. This is more than likely a forged steel barrel, so it's going to be smooth. And we're going to paint it. It's going to have a matte paint on it, but it needs to be smooth. So I'm going back over it, and this tape is not as aggressive. Do the other side with it. It just takes a few minutes. Voila, the seam is gone. And if you don't believe me, let me zoom in for you. See? Where's the other seam is? Both of them completely gone. Just with a liberal application of some Tamiya extra thin and a little bit of sanding. Like I said, you can use a regular sanding stick, a straight sanding stick, but you got to be careful that you don't over sand or remove too much material and create that flat spot. That's why these Pz.Kpfws are so handy. So I could install this in the kit, no problems, right? We go in and it'll look fine once we get painted and put it on. So I took the barrel, this is the barrel that came with the kit. So I snipped the two parts off the sprue, right? Then I took, yes, another one of my Tamiya, what do they call this, saw. Suddenly I have a brain fart. It's a hobby saw, basically. It came with a couple of blades. I cut off the pieces, and I didn't assemble it first, cut off the pieces for the kit barrel, leaving just the breech assembly. And then, yet once again, I have a beautiful turned aluminum barrel from RB Models, one of my favorite accessory manufacturers. Wasn't expensive at all. It was $7 or $8. Beautifully turned barrel, true to scale. And you'll notice the little pin in the back. And so you take your breech, cut it off, and then I took my Tamiya pin vise, right, and drilled a hole the appropriate size where this pin needs to go. And I put it in like so, wham, boom, metal barrel. And so that's another one of these optional assemblies. And I think it's going to look fantastic on the kit once we get it installed. It's a little heavier than the kit part, so you got to be careful with that. I need to put some CA glue on it. I'm going to attach it. But there you go. So your choice if you're building the kit, right? A little bit of sanding, a little bit of extra glue to remove the seam. You can use the kit part. Or I can cut off the factory barrel pieces with a razor saw. That's what they call it, razor saw. And then install an aftermarket barrel with no issues at all. It was very simple. Just took a few minutes. Anyways, just wanted to share that with you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.